Nina Vaca is chairman and CEO of Pinnacle Group, a global workforce solutions provider named as one of the fastest growing women-owned countries in the country twice in the last 6 years. Nina was recently appointed as the inaugural Entrepreneur in Residence for the city of Dallas. She was honored as the 2021 Global Changemakers by the Atlas Corps, which promotes global leadership and innovation to enhance the world's business community and talent. In addition to her work with Pinnacle, Nina is one of the few Latinas in the nation serving on the boards of publicly traded companies. She's also a civic leader and philanthropist working to expand opportunities for minorities and women in business. In 2014, she was appointed by the White House as a presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship. Nina is a German Marshall Fellow, a British American Project Fellow, and Henry Crown Fellow at the Aspen Institute, and a lifetime member of the Council on Foreign Relations. She's received the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award, the Goldman Sachs Most Intriguing Entrepreneur Award, and has been inducted into the Minority Business Hall of Fame. So I know that you knew that you had made a good choice in coming here tonight, but you might not have realized just how good a choice you made. So we are going to hear a little bit more about Nina, and then we will meet her in person. Well, almost in person.
20 years ago, I started my first company with a not so crazy idea that one person, one entrepreneur, could make a difference in the business world and in the community. And every day since then, I've been driven by one single idea: to be crazy good. Today, as we have grown Pinnacle to be one of the fastest growing companies in America, what is most satisfying is the difference that we're making in people's lives, and how we can use that success now to inspire others to contribute to organizations and to use our leadership to actually make a difference, not just in our hometown, but across the world.
We understand that when women succeed, America succeeds. The economic power that women have in this country is incredible.
Entrepreneurship and hope are universal languages. They can go through challenges and obstacles, and they can inspire people to start businesses, to help in their communities, or to truly make a difference. What I am most passionate about is reminding people that they don't need permission to follow their dreams. And 20 years later, I've learned a lot of things. Surround yourself with people that truly want to see you succeed. And whatever you're doing in life, be crazy good at it. Be crazy good.
Hey guys.
So you can't tell this, but I can see Nina right here. So I'm going to be asking, that's why I sat down. So I'm going to be asking her questions this way, and we're going to make it work. So Nina, welcome. Thank you for doing everything that was necessary actually be here tonight in the face of all obstacles?
On the contrary, I want to thank you so much for the kind invitation to be there this evening. There is no place I'd rather be than Austin, Texas, with each and every one of you in person right now. But business commitments be what they may, I am coming to you live from the great city of Philadelphia, with City Hall behind me, with the beautiful view on the 40-something floor. But I just wanted to let you know and thank the UT team for making it possible through technology and through a little bit of innovative thinking. You know, entrepreneurs always find a way. So I'm delighted to be here. And I want you to know that I only have one goal tonight, and that is to be of value to you. I've lived long enough to know that you cannot be what you cannot see. And if through my experience or my story, you find value, or you find a nugget that you can put in your pocket, or something that will inspire you to change or do something in a different direction in your life, then my job is done. So thank you for the invitation to be here.
Wow, how exciting. Okay, Nina, so we've got lots of questions for you. My first one is that Aaron Stewart told me that you founded your company in your living room. Were you thinking globally at that point? Is that something that evolved for you over time?
The short answer is it evolved over time. And let me take a moment to just build a frame a little bit, because before I started my business, it's important to know kind of my background, where I came from. And I did not have a global upbringing, so to speak. My mother and father immigrated from Quito, Ecuador, South America, to the United States, and I grew up in Los Angeles, California. But I grew up with a very small world. I knew Ecuador and I knew Los Angeles. I never traveled to any other state in the country. I never traveled until I was 18. I didn't get the travel to Mexico or to different parts of the world. That was actually my first trip other than South America. So I grew up in Los Angeles, and I didn't have a global perspective. I didn't have a global view. Growing up with immigrant parents, what I did grow up with is an incredible attitude towards the big O, and that is opportunity. The opportunity this country provided us. I grew up with a mentality that you go after what you want. And like I said in my video, you don't need permission. You don't need anybody's permission to follow your dreams. I grew up with a sense of just looking forward, always looking forward, and looking to bring your best self forward, and in search, that curiosity of your best self. I was elected into my first role when I was 17 years old in high school. And it was then that I fell in love with the concept of leadership and service. And so honestly, at a very young age, I got the opportunity to lead and lead others. And when you become a leader, it really means a commitment to other people, because that's what a leader is. It is someone who is willing to lead others, who truly cares about others. So to make a long story short, I had the opportunity to go to college in the great state of Texas, and I moved from Los Angeles, California to Texas. And like I was taught, I wanted to pursue and go after what I want. And what I wanted to be was a business person, an entrepreneur. I grew up with entrepreneurial parents and civic leaders, and I had a taste of technology when I was 15 years old. I saw a computer. And so I took that love and that passion for entrepreneurship, and I moved to a place called New York City. I'd never been there in my life. I'd never traveled there before, but I knew that that was the melting pot of business. And so I went after what I wanted. I left home. I moved to New York City, and I discovered the industry that I'm now in. So when I was 25 years old, I moved back to Dallas, and I started my business from my apartment living room floor. I was young and single and didn't know any better. I am now tenured, married, and have learned a little bit in life. I'm hoping to share that with you. But when I first started the business, now I didn't have a global concept. I truly just started it to give my family and I an opportunity. and I was curious in technology. So that was a very long answer to your question, but in short, no. I didn't have a global perspective from the beginning. That global perspective started opening up for me as the years went by and as I found mentors and sponsors and found awareness.
Okay, well, that's a super answer because it sets us up for the fact that you told me a while back about the profound impact of your experience as a German Marshall Fellow, and that had an effect on your global outlook. So can you talk about why that was a formative experience for you and how that has fed into your global business perspective?
Sure, I'm happy to share that. And in the context of teaching, I feel like I have more years behind me than I do ahead of me, but I love to teach, but I also love to learn. And in the context of teaching, the learning from the answer I'm about to give you, is I became a German Marshall Fellow because a mentor of mine introduced me to the fellowship. I was 33 years old. I had never traveled to Europe. I had never been to Europe. I had never traveled abroad, but I was a leader. And so somebody saw something in me, and it speaks to the importance of having mentors and sponsors and people that want to see you succeed. I had a state representative at the time that I had done community and service with for a very long time. Call me up. He was a German Marshall Fellow, and he said, I'd like to nominate you for this incredible opportunity to become a German Marshall Fellow. The GMF picks 15 Americans to represent the United States in 5 different countries abroad. And they actually look for people who haven't traveled to Europe. And so it was through that program that it was my first global experience. I had the opportunity to represent the United States of America and go teach about life in America in exchange with others. I got to visit entrepreneurs, educational facilities, the things that I was passionate about. And it was a beautiful eye-opening experience for me because it was the first of many fellowships. After that, I became a British American Fellow and a Henry Crown Fellow with the Aspen Institute. And of course, you've heard many others. But the learning here for the students is that there are many, many programs that will give you the visibility and the awareness of exactly how big the world is. Those are a couple. There's also the World Affairs Council and other organizations. And so the learning here, or the invitation really, is to seek out those programs. The Aspen Institute, the German Marshall Fellowship, the World Affairs Council, the Peace Through Business programs. Seek out those programs that will give you that opportunity, because there are many people, myself included, who are very interested in sponsoring and mentoring students to have a global perspective.
That is super, thank you. And I'm gonna do something kind of odd. I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna wave my hands in the air, and Jordana is gonna tell me whether the camera is refocusing on me. And it is not, so we are just gonna not worry about that anymore because the room camera picks someone. I've seen it do this before, and from that point on, that's the favorite person. And that's perfectly okay, because what we really need you all to have access to this evening is Nina. So now we are moving into the global arena. Let's see. Nina, you've served as a presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship. Can you talk about what it was about your work that led to that opportunity and how it was meaningful to you? That's a huge honor, and it must have been a really exciting thing to do.
So as I mentioned, I started working in the community at a very young age. And the learning, or the invitation here for the students, is to always give 100%. Always do your best, because you never know who is watching. years and years of giving back to the community. I started my first global experience through the Peace Through Business program, helping entrepreneurs in Rwanda and Afghanistan, just helping women understand, teaching them, my business story, inspiring them to start their business. And I had done several programs at the time. And unbeknownst to me, there was someone in the Secretary of Commerce office who worked for the Obama administration who recommended me as a page ambassador. President Barack Obama started a presidential ambassador of global entrepreneurship. It was his vision to teach the rest of the world about entrepreneurship. When you Google the Global 1000, you will find that the top 1,000 global companies in the world, the United States of America stands tall and a leader in building businesses. And so the president decided to select a small group of ambassadors that would travel the world and inspire others about their entrepreneurial story. My election as a page ambassador, I was the only non-household name. I stood alongside Tory Burch, Steve Case, Damon John, and many others that were quite frankly celebrities. And there was me. And the only reason I sat at that table is because somebody, unbeknownst to me, recommended me. And so the invitation here is to do your best. Always give 100%, because you never know who's watching and who could be in a position to recommend you. As a page ambassador, I had the chance to travel to 5 different continents telling my entrepreneurial story. I got to fly on Air Force One alongside the Secretary of Commerce, Penny Pritzker. Our first stop was Africa. I went to Vietnam. I went to Jordan. I've been to Ghana, Africa, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had in my life. The opportunity to visit with entrepreneurs across the world. Many of them I recognized. Many entrepreneurs across the world started their businesses not because they wanted to be famous or because they wanted to be rich. Many entrepreneurs started their businesses because they wanted to feed their family. And so for me, entrepreneurship changed my family's life. It has changed my life. And my promise was to use it as a platform to change many other lives.
Wonderful. And one of the things that causes me to think about is the fact that in international business education, we talk a lot about the fact that business people are ambassadors for their countries, whether they mean to be or set out to be or want to be or not, because we are representing our country when we interact with people from other countries. So how does a business go about making sure that it has a positive global impact on the world? And how do business people go about making sure that they represent themselves and their country well?
So 2 things. I'll answer the second question first and then the first one. The second question, how do you represent your company or your country well? Something I learned at a very young age, and that is learning to understand that people have a different view all over the country. And you don't have to agree with a different set of view or a different perspective, but you do as a leader need to understand it. And so I feel like as we are ambassadors of our country and as we represent the United States of America, it's important to have a perspective that people may not always think like you. And it is important to understand that first and foremost, and to be able to be even keel and to listen in a way of understanding, not in a way to judge. Your second question was what it was about businesses having an impact. Is that what you asked?
As an entrepreneur, as a business leader, how do you go about making sure that your company has a positive impact?
Well, as a private company, there are 2 kinds of companies, as you know. There are public companies and private companies and government entities, we can all have the opportunity to create a great impact. Some have less different pressures. As a private company, I've been blessed with the opportunity to invest in the things that I know will make an impact. For me, the difference is anything that I have seen on a global perspective always starts with one individual person being intentional. I find that the way that we can make a positive impact is through our mindset of not just being sincere about wanting to have an impact, but being serious. Many times I find companies are very sincere about something, but they're not serious. We can't hashtag our way, or we can't change the world through our words. We have to change the world through our actions. And so the way that I would answer that question to an individual or a company is by being intentional. It's the combination of being both sincere and serious. And when you're serious, you have someone in charge, you have measurable goals, you have metrics, you have updates, and you innovate. And so for me, that is the way that we have, in my mind, been able to make an impact, is to be dead serious about diversity, consider it a value in our business and something that we live.
Okay, super. So I have some questions that have been provided to me by students. We're gonna open this up to Q&A so that hopefully many people can get their questions answered. But I have one that I will read to you that I received.
Sure.
I thought it was a good question. You've said that it was important to challenge yourself to be outside your comfort zone. You seem really poised and confident now. So can you tell us about some times when you had to overcome fear and anxiety and choose to do the hard thing anyway? And I think that's especially important to us, those of us who spend time abroad. We are not always in our comfort zone. So how has that worked for you?
Well, thank you for the compliment. I haven't always seemed poised. I feel like many times I'm like a duck swimming in a pond where I seem calm and poised, but I'm pedaling like crazy underneath. I feel like this question is a very important one, and I want to frame the invitation to define leadership. Leadership can be defined in many different ways, and it is a very broad term with lots of dynamics. But the answer to your specific question is courage. It's the same answer when I am asked to describe what is the one ingredient a leader has to have, and that is courage. It takes a lot of courage to be uncomfortable. It takes a lot of courage to try new things. It takes a lot of courage to be the youngest and the only, all of which I've done. It takes a lot of courage to not have all the answers, but be willing to move forward and move the needle anyways. It takes a lot of courage. And so to answer your question, I have made it a habit to exercise my courage muscle. And the way that I do that is I try to exercise that muscle, not just in business, but in my personal life. It takes courage to be vulnerable. It takes courage to give feedback. It takes courage to have uncomfortable conversations. Personally, I'm a triathlete. I like to swim, bike, and run. I've completed 6 70.3 Ironmans in 3 different continents. And I love, that is the way that I exercise my courage muscle. I've swam Alcatraz. It takes a lot of courage to throw yourself in the Pacific Ocean where you know there's sharks. For me, I like being around people that are better than me. I've made it a habit to surround myself by people that are smarter than me and to not be offended or not have my ego bruised, but instead be inspired. I don't get mad, I get motivated. And it takes real courage to do things for the first time. But how could you have courage if you're not practicing it? I practice it with my triathlons. I practice it in business. And I have to be candid with you. Throughout my life, I've been the first, the youngest, and the only. I started serving on publicly traded company boards when I was 38 years old. And so I believe that by putting yourself in courageous situations, you will grow.
Well, that's a lovely answer, and I'm sure everyone is very inspired and would like to know more. And I have more questions for you, but I'm betting that our audience also has questions. So let's start there, and I'll fill in as needed if you need to think for a minute and formulate some. But would anyone like to lead off? We're all thinking? All right. Think fast, and I will continue because a lot of people have had questions for you. So one is this, Nina. How has being a woman and a woman of color affected your business dealings and communication, especially with other cultures? Is there a specific example when this was an issue for you?
That's a really great question. I joined an industry, technology. I joined an industry where there wasn't a lot of females, there wasn't a lot of minorities. And today, Pinnacle Group stands as the largest Latina workforce solutions provider in the country. I don't have a lot of people that I can look to my right and look to my left and ask for advice that have built global companies from the ground up. Today, we operate and have a footprint in 13 different countries and serve some of the largest companies in the world. And I feel like that the perspective, again, and the courage to go into places that we haven't been, has been one of the secrets to my success. It's important. The best way to frame the answer is to say that it is not what actually happens to you in life. It is how you relate to what happens to you. Believe it or not, I've been in restaurants with my hair up in a bun and somebody asked me for a drink. I've been mistaken for someone that worked at the hotel while I was at a women's conference for business owners. And so, yes, there have been times where people have underestimated me. Yes, there have been times where people have had a different perspective, but I tend to, again, it's not what happens to you, it's how you react. And I have come to love being underestimated. I have come to love being underestimated because it gives me the advantage. When I'm in a room and I'm the only Hispanic, I look at myself as the opportunity to teach, as the opportunity to embrace my culture. When I am the only woman, I look at it as an opportunity to establish credibility and bring others. And so, again, it is not what happens to you or what situations that you're in, because I've been in many difficult situations throughout my tenure. It's how you relate that really matters.
I love that. And I'm a Ted Lasso fan. And as my students know, and one of the things he talks about is the advantage of being underestimated. So I think he would absolutely agree with you. And I think that was a super answer. And one of the other questions that I received was along those lines. You mentioned a learner's mindset as a superpower. So sometimes we might think that we're maintaining a curious mindset, but we might realize that we're reacting or behaving based on some kind of bias or some kind of negative reaction. So how do we recognize when we're not acting with curiosity and get back to that?
You know, I learned, I think the answer I have is active listening. Sometimes we're taught that we need to learn how to listen. I want to invite everyone to learn to be the last to speak. when we're speaking, we're not learning. And I think there's deep, deep value in active listening. And what I mean by active listening is listening to understand, not listening to respond. And so it is it's human nature when you're having a conversation, especially if someone brings up something familiar. Oh, me too. Let me tell you about me. I think that you will find and appreciate, and you can't unlearn this. Once I learned it, you can't unlearn it. When you're in a conversation, to turn on your active listening and to really, really seek to understand versus seeking to respond. For me, that gives me great awareness of what's going on inside.
All right, thank you. Another question is, can you describe some of the differences between doing business in the US and globally? So that's a really broad one, but I thought I'd go ahead and ask it and let you answer it in whatever way occurs to you.
Sure. Let me begin by saying that the United States of America is the best country to do business in the world. The challenges are many. There are different languages, different currencies. It is much easier to do business in other countries where English is the common language. It becomes more complex when you're changing currencies and you're changing languages. It is extremely challenging to do business in other countries. And one of the things that I'm constantly appreciating is the beauty of the United States of America. There are other countries where it is in the United States, you could have a DBA on the internet in minutes. It is very challenging. It is not the same process in other countries. And the more business we do on a global level, the more I come to appreciate that. The complexities are real, but we're up for the challenge.
And do you have any recommendations for people who are trying to establish a global mindset and how they can begin to think in terms that will make them successful in an international context?
I think in an international context, what makes you successful is the same leadership traits, is it understanding people. I think when you understand people, or you take the time to understand people, that is a concept that will help you in the United States and abroad. People come in many different shapes and colors, but they come with different mindsets as well. And so again, the more that you can, as a conscious leader, understand and meet people where they are, the art of meeting people where they are, communicating with people, understanding people, leading people, and most of all, serving people, that mindset has been critical to our success.
Super. If you have a question at any point, raise your hand and I will move to you. So Laura, you have one?
Yes. Okay, so she's like a holistic superstar. She does everything. It's amazing. So I had a question on how do you maintain healthy habits to have like a good work-life balance and stay motivated? I know the past couple of years have been very challenging. I think as I'm going to the workforce, I'm a little overwhelmed. I was wondering if you had advice.
Oh, first of all, thank you for having the courage to ask questions. I always invite students to ask questions and to be memorable. And you did just that. That is an excellent question. It is very easy to get overwhelmed these days. The amount of data and distractions that you have, it's very difficult to find that quiet space. The invitation I would give you is to seek out that quiet space. I like to do it first thing in the morning. That's where I get my workouts in. I love to swim, bike, and run. When I'm swimming, the phone can't ring. And so I really enjoy that quiet space and that quiet time because that allows me to connect with the bigger picture. Sometimes we get so busy that we're looking down at the next thing that we have to do, but it's so important to have a clear mind and a healthy mindset And you can only get that through some downtime. And so I want to invite you to, you don't have to swim, bike, and run. You can walk, you can yoga, you can golf, whatever it is that really allows you that time to just think. Because sometimes that is the missing element, is that time to just to think, to be grateful, to plan, to appreciate. That quiet space is priceless.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, I was wondering, what advice do you wish that someone had told you when you were starting your own company?
Oh, you know, the advice that I wish someone would have told me when I started my own business is the power of entrepreneurship to change and impact my life, and the power that small businesses have collectively. When I first started, I was 25 years old. I didn't even disclose to my customers that I was the CEO or the founder. I called myself something different because I didn't value that I was part of something much bigger than myself. Small businesses have been fueling the American economy for a very, very long time, and they'll continue to fuel the American economy. At one point in the last 25 years, women-owned businesses employed more people than the Fortune 100, than the Fortune 500. That is a crazy term when you think about it. There are over 10 million women-owned businesses in this country. And so I wish I would have known that I wasn't out there by myself with my little shingle. I wish I would have known that I was part of something much, much bigger than myself. Because when I recognized that I was part of something larger than myself, and when I recognized that I was part of the answer to fuel the American economy, I started acting differently and I started thinking differently. I was no longer by myself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, here's another one that I received. With your experience in international programs like Peace Through Business, what specific initiatives have you worked on that promoted global social welfare through international business?
So what I would invite people to do is to figure out how to gain awareness through programs, and then secondly, what you're interested and passionate about. I was very interested in a college education changed my life. I was then very interested I was so grateful for the opportunity that I was interested in raising money for other students like me that could be, could receive a college education. So about 2 decades ago, or about 25 years ago, I started raising money for students to go to college. It was what I was passionate about. And then as I grew my business, I started to become very passionate about small businesses, about women-owned businesses. Then I started to become very passionate about technology. Then I started to becoming very, very passionate about, as I became aware of all these things, I wanted to invite others to go with me. And so I would invite you to find programs that are within your passion, but give you that global perspective. My daughter started traveling globally. I waited till I was in my 30s to travel to Europe. My daughter, who is a graduate of the University of Texas and a proud Longhorn, started traveling internationally at 14 through programs that were available to her. At 14, she went to the Ecuadorian Amazon. By 15, she went to Cuba, and by 16, before she could even drive, she'd been to Costa Rica. Her passion, she figured, was missionary work and giving back. And so, again, that's a small example of someone who seeks out programs. She searched for those programs that would provide her that opportunity. Since then, she's had the opportunity to go to Beijing and study in China. to go to Ireland and to go to South Africa and to different places. And I can tell you, just visiting all those different places among the world has made her so appreciative of the United States of America, but has really exposed her to different languages, different cultures. And I think that will enable her to be a better leader. That is a small example and a very long answer to your short question.
Oh, good. Can you describe some of the impacts of the initiatives that you've been involved in through, for example, business?
The impact in my mind has been to give back. The impact for me is to give back. One of the most moving experiences I've had is as a Page ambassador. I had the opportunity to be in I was the speaker for a graduating class, for a class of people that were getting their citizenship to the United States of America. The impact that them coming to the US, there were over 30 countries represented that day, was one of the, and to be able to hand someone their citizenship was one of the most moving experiences I've had, an appreciation for the global country that we are. The other moving experience was being in Ghana, Africa, in a room full of 30 women that were so passionate about entrepreneurship. Again, not to make money, but to feed their family. And I realized that helping women business owners across the globe can be incredibly gratifying, because the data will show you that when you help a woman, 90%, 95% of that dollar goes right back to her family. And so when you help a woman, you're helping a family. When you're impacting a family, you're impacting a city. When you're impacting a city, you can impact a region, a state. And when you're impacting big regions, you can impact a nation. And it is all connected. It starts small, but it can grow to something big. And so for me, the impact of helping someone start a business and to see what it will do to their lives and the next generations after them has been some of the most moving experiences I've had. I actually have an example, if I may. My purpose and the company that I run, our purpose is connecting people to opportunity. And it's important to understand what that opportunity might mean. It could mean awareness. It could mean an opportunity. In many cases, I had the opportunity to visit Vietnam and Jordan. And I was part of programs. Again, I'm seeking out programs. The Department of State had a program where I had women come from Amman, Jordan, to the United States and spend a summer. And the woman that came that summer from Amman to work at Pinnacle was absolutely brilliant. And she spent an entire summer in the environment of entrepreneurship at Pinnacle headquarters. Suffice to say, to make a long story short, she wanted to become an entrepreneur, and she was really good at what she did. When I talk about being crazy good at what you do, it means finding your personal strengths and double downing on those strengths. You are most likely to be successful doing something that A, you're very good at, B, that you could harness and become really, really good at. Chances are you will be more successful and more fulfilled when you're doing something that's naturally your talent. So Shafika had a talent, and she decided at the end of that summer that she wanted to be an entrepreneur. Well, what an entrepreneur needs more than anything is an opportunity. So I gave her the opportunity to Pinnacle to be her first customer. And she went back to Amman, Jordan, and started her own business with Pinnacle as her first customer. That is just one example of our success stories on how we utilize our business success to help others achieve their dreams. We did that all over again with TUI. somebody who worked at Pinnacle and wanted to, whose homeland was Vietnam. She was, again, crazy good at what she did. She needed that opportunity. Pinnacle was able to provide her with that opportunity. Those are two small examples where we talk the talk and walk the walk. They were the right examples of taking advantage of programs, taking advantage of people being crazy good at what they do, and connecting with our purpose of providing, connecting people to opportunity. So I could talk for hours. There are countless things that that we have been able to achieve together in connecting people to opportunity that have been so gratifying.
Super, thank you so much.
Yes, I did. So you mentioned earlier a couple of the challenges you'll face when you're operating internationally, such as whether it be a language barrier or exchanging currencies. I was wondering, when you first made the decision to just be a US company and go from that to operating in multiple countries, what was one of the earliest difficulties you faced or that you remember, either on a individual level or company-wide?
That's a really great question. So we decided to go global in a very opportunistic way. It's not like we said, oh, we'd like to do business in Latin America. We're going to plant a flag and then have a marketing plan and then grow our business there. No, the way that we have expanded our global footprint is opportunistically. I told you the story of Shafika in Amman, Jordan, of Tui in Vietnam. There's the story of a customer who really wanted to enter Latin America. And so we've been blessed with companies so committed to our success and so impressed with our ability to execute that it has bought us an opportunity to be shepherded to a different country. It was a large insurance company that we did a really good job for that wanted to expand to Latin America. And Latin America is something I knew. It's a language that we speak. And so we use that as an opportunity to open up Chile, Mexico, and Argentina in 2018. And so the lesson and the learning here is if there are opportunities within your own networks or programs or businesses that can be very opportunistic, that's how we've chosen to go global.
Yes.
Hi, I just had a question about earlier when you mentioned that you moved to New York right after college. And I was wondering, as someone who is considering moving to like a bigger city like New York and Los Angeles, how was that experience like for your career? How was like moving to this bigger city and really like experiencing everything? How was that like for your career, and what takeaways did you have from that?
You know, that story is a story of taking a big risk. And I would say that taking calculated risks have been part of critical to our success, and the willingness to have the courage. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, but in a very small area. Los Angeles is a very big area. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. So I didn't have the exposure to the full breadth of Los Angeles that you would think I would, a major big city. I'd never been to New York City. And for me, that trade-off, I knew, and I always say that it's not enough to want something in life. You actually have to be willing to make the trade-offs to achieve it. I wanted to be a businesswoman. I wanted to be in technology. There was a company that offered me the opportunity to be in technology, but it was in a city that I'd never lived in. I knew no one. I had a one-way ticket at 20-something years old, graduating. You know, I had just graduated from college. But I knew that that was the trade-off, and I knew that it would be difficult, and I knew that I would have to put myself in an uncomfortable situation, and I knew that I had to have confidence in myself. And so that's the invitation, really, because you'll never try anything new unless you're uncomfortable. And, you know, we live in a global world now. Upon graduation, you may get an invitation in a different country that you've never been in. that you've perhaps never visited, that you know no one in. I want to invite you to lean in to those opportunities. For me, it was a game changer, and really the beginning of the rest of my life. And it could be for you as well.
Thank you.
Wonderful. If we don't have any other questions, I'll ask you my last one, Nina.
Okay.
So we're in an academic institution, and most of the people in this room are studying international business in some way, shape, or form. What kinds of skills would you recommend to a young person who is interested in a global career of some kind, whether it's entrepreneurship or working for a company or an NGO or government or whatever?
I want to go back to the video of being crazy good and give you a little bit of a frame of what I'm talking about. I didn't have the opportunity to have any assessments. I just didn't have any awareness to the kind of assessments that are available to us today. When I say by assessments, I'm talking about Gallup.com, Strength Finders, or the PI or others. I didn't have the opportunity to do so. And so it took me 2 decades to realize the notion of being crazy good. And what it really means is just find what you're really good at. Find out what you're naturally good at and double down on that. And that is a skill. The skill of self-awareness is a skill. And so you asked what skill I would invite students to have. And I would say the skill of being aware of where your talents lie and what you're naturally good at is important. And then the number one skill of having just a learning mindset and knowing that there is so much more to learn. I think the combination of those two is the invitation that I would give everyone today.
Well, thank you so much, Nina. Thank you very much for joining us, for making this work, for being there at what must be dinner time for you. So please enjoy the rest of your evening. You have graced us with your presence despite considerable difficulties, and we're very grateful to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for the kind invitation. Enjoy your evening. I wouldn't miss an opportunity to inspire the next generation. Thank you again for the kind invite.